Do I hear the opening bid? Mr. Abel Finch's gavel hangs in the air. The ballroom at Delamore Park is packed to the doors. Silk dresses, cigar smoke, the smell of old money circling a dying house. Lot 1 is chalked on the board behind him in tall white letters. Delamore Park, enter. Sir Humphrey Delamore sits in the front row. His face is the color of wet ash. His hands grip his knees so hard the knuckles go white. Do I hear the opening? A voice comes from the back of the room. Calm, steady. The kind of voice that has said the same words on wash day for 11 years. The preferred creditors bid first, Mr. Finch. Rule 9. Every head turns. A woman stands at the back of the ballroom, plain gray dress, hands red and cracked from lye soap, eyes that do not blink. Rupert Delamore is on his feet, shrieking, pointing. That's the laundress. Somebody remove the laundress. Nobody moves. Mr. Abel Finch looks down at the papers in his hand. His face drains white. He looks up again, slower this time. He does not remove the laundress. Because the laundress is holding a ledger, bound in leather, thick as a Bible. And Abel Finch, stickler for rules, a man who has read every clause of every auction statute in England, knows exactly what Rule 9 means when a woman like this one is standing behind it. How does a laundress, paid in nothing but promises for 3 years, outbid a room full of earls? You are about to watch her build it, debt by unpaid debt, shilling by stolen shilling, until the hammer falls on the one name nobody in that room expected to hear. But before we continue, subscribe now and tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what time you saw this video. Tonight's story is one you will never forget. Rewind 3 years. The first humiliation happens at a dinner party on a warm evening in late summer when the Delamores are still entertaining as though nothing in the world could touch them. 20 guests sit at the long table under the chandeliers. Squires, a bishop's wife, 2 minor lords down from London for the shooting season. Nora Quick is not at the table. Nora Quick is in the doorway of the dining room, waiting with 2 other maids to clear the fish course, because the head footman is short-staffed and every pair of hands is needed, laundress or not. Sir Humphrey is telling a story about his new stallion, the one that cost more than a farmhand earns in 5 years, and the table is laughing along with him, the way tables full of well-fed people always laugh at a rich man's jokes. A candle gutters near Nora's elbow. Wax drips onto the good tablecloth, the same tablecloth she scrubbed and pressed and ironed for 6 hours the day before, her hands raw under the hot water until the linen came up white as new snow. Lady Constance notices the wax spot first. She lifts her wine glass, points at the small stain with one gloved finger, and does not lower her voice at all. Sir Humphrey, look at this. One would think our laundress cannot even keep a tablecloth clean for a single evening. The table turns. 20 pairs of eyes land on the doorway, on the 2 maids standing there with empty serving trays, on Nora Quick specifically, though Lady Constance does not know her name and has never once asked it in 11 years. It's wax, my lady, Nora says quietly. From the candle just now, not from the wash. Are you contradicting me? Lady Constance's voice sharpens, delighted, the way a woman's voice sharpens when she has found a target that cannot fight back in a room full of witnesses. In front of my guests? A ripple of laughter moves down the table. Nervous laughter, the kind guests give when they are not sure whether they are meant to laugh, but laugh anyway because the hostess clearly wants them to. No, my lady, Nora says. Her face does not change. Her hands, folded in front of her apron, do not shake. Good, Lady Constance says, already turning back to her wine, already bored with the small cruelty she has just handed out like a party favor. Have the cloth replaced before dessert, and do try, in future, to remember your place. The maids curtsy. Nora curtsies with them. Exactly the same depth, exactly the same silence, and backs out of the dining room with the tray of dirty fish plates rattling faintly in her hands. The only signs, if anyone had cared to look for it, that anything in her was shaking at all. In the kitchen passage afterward, one of the younger maids starts to cry, humiliated on Nora's behalf more than Nora seems willing to be humiliated on her own. Nora sets the tray down, wipes her hands on her apron, and says only one thing: "Don't waste tears on people who count your worth by a candle stain." She picks the tray back up. Save them. You'll want them for something better one day. Nobody in that dining room remembers the maid's name who stood in the doorway that night. They will remember it soon enough. But that first public sting, a rich woman's careless cruelty, dressed up as manners, delivered in front of 20 witnesses who all looked away rather than object, is the moment the black notebook is born, 3 days before Nora ever writes a single word in it. It is simply, for now, a wound with no ink on it yet. Wage day at Delamore Park comes on the last Friday of every month, or it is supposed to. The washerwomen line up at the bottom of the servants' steps at 9 in the morning, aprons still damp, hands raw from the coppers. Nora Quick stands at the front of the line, as she always does. She has led this line for 11 years. Sir Humphrey comes out onto the terrace above them in his riding coat, a fresh horse waiting in the yard, its coat gleaming like poured silver. He does not come down the steps. He never comes down the steps. "Ladies," he says, spreading his hands like a man announcing good news. "There will be a small delay this month." Nora's jaw tightens. Behind her, Kezia Plum, 60 years old, 60 years of washing other people's linen, folds her arms. "You said that last month, sir," Kezia says, "and I meant it last month." Sir Humphrey smiles. It does not reach his eyes. "Artists are paid on completion. Consider my household your masterpiece." Laughter rolls down from the terrace. Lady Constance is up there too, in blue silk, a glass of sherry in her hand, laughing loudest of all. Rupert leans on the balustrade, grinning at the women below like they are a show put on for his entertainment. Nora does not laugh. Nora does not argue either. She turns, walks back to the washhouse, and that night by candlelight she opens a black notebook and writes the first line in it. Sir Humphrey Delamore. Owed £11, 4 shillings. Promised completion. She underlines the word promise twice. Kezia knocks on the wash-house door an hour later, sees the notebook still open on the table, sees Nora's face in the candlelight, and says nothing. She has known Nora Quick for 9 years. She has never once seen that look on her face before. "Go home, Kezia," Nora says. "Tomorrow's a working day." Kezia goes, but she remembers the look. She will remember it for 3 years. 2 weeks later, a wagon arrives from Bath. 6 men carry a crate up the front steps of Delamore Park, wrapped in blankets, roped like a coffin. Lady Constance stands on the steps directing them with a fan, snapping orders like a general. "Careful, careful, you fools, that glass is Venetian. It is worth more than the lot of you put together." The crate is a mirror. Gold-framed, taller than a man, the kind of thing that costs more than a servant earns in 5 years of honest work. Mrs. Aldous, the housekeeper, stands wringing her hands at the foot of the steps. "My lady," she says quietly, "the wage fund, I was told it would be released this week for the laundry staff." Lady Constance does not even turn her head. "Let the rough girls wait," she says. "They're used to water, not silver. This mirror is for the ballroom. It will hang by Christmas." Mrs. Aldous's mouth opens, closes. She has worked for this family for 20 years, and she has never once seen the wage fund spent on anything that did not have 4 legs or a French name. She says nothing more. What is there to say to a woman holding a fan like a scepter? Nora hears about the mirror from Mrs. Aldous within the hour, delivering a fresh basket of pressed linen to the servants' hall. She does not say a word. She goes back to the washes and writes a second line in the black notebook. Lady Constance Delamore. Wage fund diverted, £40. Purchase, 1 mirror. Witnesses, the entire kitchen staff. She closes the notebook. Somewhere upstairs, a maid is polishing gold frame that will hang where the servants can see it every single day they are not paid. Rupert Delamore has debts of his own, and unlike his father, he does not even pretend to feel shame about them. He rides into the village of Ashcombe most Tuesdays, ties his horse outside the draper's shop, and walks in like the shop belongs to him. "Put it on the account, Bracewell," he says, tossing a bolt of fine wool onto the counter. Old Bracewell the draper opens his ledger, a battered thing, pages soft with handling, and shows Rupert the column of red ink running down the page like a wound. "Sir, the account already stands at £42. Rupert laughs. Actually laughs right in the old man's face. £42. Bracewell: "Do you know what my father spent on a single stallion last spring? Your whole shop wouldn't cover the saddle." He picks up the wool anyway, tucks it under his arm. "Put it on the account." Nora is in the back room of that very shop that same afternoon, delivering pressed collars for Bracewell's own family. She hears every word through the thin wall. She says nothing to Rupert. She says nothing to Bracewell either. Not yet, but 3 nights later, in the dark, wearing her plain wool coat, she knocks on Bracewell's back door. "Mrs. Quick," the old man says, startled, holding his lamp up. "It's gone 10 o'clock. "I know what time it is, Mr. Bracewell." Nora steps inside without being asked twice. "I know what the Delamores owe you, too. £42, was it?" Bracewell's face goes wary. "How would you? I hear things. Delivering linen, you hear everything." She sets a small cloth purse on his counter. It clinks, heavy with coin. "I'll buy that debt from you. Every shilling of it. You get your money tonight. In your hand. No waiting on a family that doesn't pay its washerwomen either." Bracewell stares at the purse, stares at her cracked red hands. Why would a laundress want a dead man's debt? He's not dead, Nora says. He's just careless, and careless men eventually have to answer for the sums. She pushes the purse an inch closer. "Do we have a bargain, Mr. Bracewell?" He takes the purse, signs the paper she has already written out, in careful, patient handwriting, transferring the debt to one Nora Quick of Delamore Park. It is the 4th line in the black notebook. It will not be the last. Rupert struts back into the draper's shop the following Tuesday, expecting the same easy welcome he has always received, tossing another bolt of cloth onto the counter without a second glance. "Put it on the account, Bracewell." Old Bracewell folds his hands on the counter and says nothing at all, because there is nothing left for him to say that would matter. He simply shakes his head, once, slow and final, and looks toward the door as though he expects someone else to answer in his place. Rupert laughs, assuming it's some tradesman's joke, a bit of theater from a man grown bold with age. He does not yet know the account no longer belongs to Bracewell at all. He will not find out for another year, not until the exact moment it matters most, in a ballroom full of witnesses, when the truth reaches him all at once instead of 1 shilling at a time. Word does not travel fast in Ashcombe, because Nora makes sure of it. She visits the butcher next, whose bill for the Delamore kitchens has gone unpaid for 8 months, while Sir Humphrey buys a second stallion. She visits the coal merchant, whose carts have kept every fireplace in that great house burning while his own children shiver at home. She visits the wine merchant, the farrier, the saddler, the seamstress who made Lady Constance's opera gowns and has not been paid since spring. Each visit is the same. A knock after dark, a purse of coin, scraped together from 11 years of wages she never spent on herself, because a woman who is owed money learns very quickly not to trust a promise, a signature. A line in the black notebook, growing longer every month. The saddler is the hardest to convince. He is a proud man, and pride does not like admitting a laundress can pay a debt a duke's household cannot. "I don't take charity, Mrs. Quick," he says, arms folded across his leather apron, the smell of tanned hide thick in the small shop. "It isn't charity," Nora says. "It's a purchase. You're owed £19 for saddles Rupert Delamore ordered and never paid a shilling toward. I'm offering you every shilling of it tonight. What you do with the paper afterward is your own business." He studies her a long moment, the lamp between them throwing long shadows across stacked leather and iron buckles. "And if I say no, then you wait for a family that hasn't paid you in 2 years to remember you exist." "I don't recommend the wait. I've done 11 years of it myself. He signs. They always sign, in the end, because a purse of real coin in the hand beats a promise on the wind every single time. And by now, word has begun to travel, quietly, carefully, never past the shop door, that the laundress from Delamore Park pays in full and asks no questions. One evening, delivering pressed linen to the vicarage, Nora finds something she was not looking for. A letter, half tucked beneath a stack of parish accounts on the vicar's own desk, addressed to Sir Humphrey in a solicitor's hand, and left there, forgotten, after the vicar hosted a meeting of the parish trustees the week before. She should not read it. She reads it anyway, standing alone in the study for the length of 30 careful seconds. 90 days, the letter says, in dry legal language, or the bank proceeds to auction. She refolds it exactly as she found it, sets it back beneath the parish accounts, and walks home with the number 90 turning over and over in her mind, like a coin flipped in the dark. Whatever she has built, however far the black notebook has grown, it now has a deadline stamped into it that nobody at Delamore Park has spoken aloud yet. She quickens her pace after that. 2 more shops in 1 week, a third the week after. The tin box under her bed grows heavier with paper, though never once with anything a thief would think to steal. Nothing but signatures, which are worth more than gold to the one person in the county who understands exactly what they mean. She tells no one, not Kezia, not Mrs. Aldous, not even her own sister in Bristol. Command habits, learned the hard way, trust nobody. Not even the people fighting beside you. Because the people who cheated her once taught her that trust is the most expensive thing a poor woman can spend. The debts pile higher through that year and into the next. Sir Humphrey does not notice. Sir Humphrey never notices anything that isn't wearing a saddle. There is a county fair that autumn, held on the green outside Ashcombe, and Sir Humphrey attends it the way he attends everything, loudly, expensively, and without paying for a single stall he visits. He buys a prize pig at auction on credit, buys ribbons for Lady Constance's bonnet on credit, and stands in the middle of the green telling a cluster of local farmers exactly what he thinks of men who worry too much about money. "You farming men," he says, swirling a glass of cider he has not paid for, "you fret so over shillings. A gentleman doesn't count his coins. A gentleman spends and trusts the world to sort itself out behind him." The farmers say nothing to his face. Farmers rarely do, to a man who still holds the deed to half the land they work. But Nora is there too, at the edge of the green, delivering a basket of pressed altar linens to the vicar's wife for the harvest service, and she hears every word of it, filed away neatly beside the wax-stain insult, and the mirror and the shrieking laughter from the terrace. She does not confront him. She has learned by now that confrontation spends itself in a single afternoon and changes nothing. A ledger, on the other hand, does not forget, does not tire, and does not care how loudly a man laughs while he is being recorded. That night she adds 3 more lines to the black notebook: the pig breeder, the ribbon maker, the cider seller, none of whom have yet been paid a shilling for the county fair, and closes the cover with a small, private satisfaction that nobody in that laughing crowd on the green would have recognized if they had seen her face. The bank's letter, when it finally comes, arrives less than a season later. The bank notices first. A letter arrives at Delamore Park on a wet Tuesday in September on stiff cream paper with a solicitor's seal. Sir Humphrey reads it standing in the front hall, and the color leaves his face the way water leaves a cracked jug. The mortgage is called. 90 days to pay, or the estate goes to auction. He does not tell the servants. He does not tell the tradesmen he owes. He tells Lady Constance, in the drawing room with the door shut. But doors at Delamore Park are old, and the servants who clean the grates outside them have very good ears. By that evening, Nora knows. She sits alone in the wash-house that night with the black notebook open in front of her, and for the first time in 3 years, she allows herself something close to a smile. 90 days. She does the sum in her head faster than any bank clerk could manage on paper. 41 separate debts, now sitting in a locked tin box beneath her bed, every one of them signed over, every one of them legal, every one of them first in line the moment that gavel falls. She closes the notebook. Somewhere above her, in the great house, Sir Humphrey is already planning his last desperate move. He does not plan to pay his debts. He plans to marry his son out of them. A ball, Sir Humphrey announces at breakfast, slapping the table so hard the teacups jump. One final ball, the finest this county has ever seen. We invite every eligible heiress within 50 miles. We dazzle them, and Rupert marries money before the quarter is out. Problem solved. On what funds, Humphrey? Lady Constance asks, though not with much concern. She is more interested in which gown she'll wear. On credit, my dear. On credit. A man's name is worth something in this county still. He does not look at the stack of unpaid bills on the sideboard when he says it. The ball is ordered on credit from 3 different merchants, none of whom yet know the others exist, all of whom will discover the truth on the same terrible night. Extra staff are hired on credit. Champagne is ordered by the crate on credit from a merchant in Bristol named Mr. Sowerby, who has not yet heard the name Delamore spoken with anything but respect. The unpaid laundry staff are ordered to serve at the ball. Kezia Plum is handed a pair of white gloves so mended, so patched at the fingertips that her own hands can be seen through the thin places when she holds a tray to the light. These will have to do, Mrs. Aldous says apologetically. There was no money for new ones. Kezia says nothing. She has learned this last year to say nothing and watch. She has noticed Nora slipping out at odd hours. She has noticed a locked tin box under Nora's bed that was not there 2 years ago. She has said nothing about that either, but she is beginning to wonder. The night of the ball, Delamore Park blazes with light from every window. Carriages line the drive for half a mile. Inside, the great hall glitters, chandeliers, silk, the new Venetian mirror hanging exactly where Lady Constance promised, reflecting every jewel in the room 100 times over. Nora is not invited to attend, of course. But she is there anyway, in the kitchen passage, helping load trays, watching through the gap in the door as the county's finest families circle Rupert Delamore like gulls around a fishing boat. A toast, Sir Humphrey calls out near midnight, raising a glass of champagne high enough for the whole ballroom to see. To Delamore Park, to its future, to its guests, the finest this county has to offer. Glasses rise. Crystal rings against crystal, bright and sharp, 100 small chimes at once, and that is the exact moment the doors at the back of the hall bang open. Mr. Sowerby, the champagne merchant from Bristol, walks in with 2 men in work coats behind him, and he does not look like a man who has come to drink. "Beg pardon, my lord," he says, loud enough to carry over the string quartet, "but I've had no payment on this order, and no answer to 3 letters, and I'll be taking back what hasn't been drunk." The music stumbles, stops. "Sir, this is hardly the moment." Sir Humphrey begins, his smile cracking at the edges. "It's the only moment I've got," Sowerby says, and nods to his men. They begin lifting crates of unopened champagne straight off the supper table, in front of 200 of the county's finest guests, the bottles clinking like a chorus of small mocking bells. A gasp runs down the length of the room. Somewhere near the back, a lady in green silk actually laughs behind her fan before catching herself. Rupert's face goes scarlet. "Get that man out of here." "Not until my bill's settled, sir," Sowerby says, and keeps loading crates, unhurried, while 200 pairs of eyes drink in every second of it. A dowager near the punch table drops her glass outright, and it shatters against the marble floor, a sharp, bright crack that seems to echo far longer than it should. Nobody moves to sweep it up. Every servant in that room has suddenly found somewhere else to look. "Well," murmurs one heiress to her mother, not quite quietly enough, "I don't believe I shall be staying for the second dance." By the time the last crate leaves, half the champagne on the tables is gone. The band has not resumed playing, and every heiress in the room is suddenly remembering an early appointment elsewhere. It is a small win, not the whole war. But Nora, watching from the kitchen passage with a tray forgotten in her hands, allows herself a slow breath. One debt collected in public, in front of the very people Sir Humphrey most wanted to impress. There will be more. The mirror goes next, though nobody at the ball sees it happen. 3 weeks later, with the bank's 90 days burning down fast, Lady Constance quietly instructs 2 footmen to take the Venetian mirror down and carry it to a pawnbroker in Bath. A last desperate scramble for cash to keep the household afloat 1 more week. The footmen, careless with a burden they resent carrying, let one corner clip the doorframe on the way out. The glass does not shatter. It cracks, one long, jagged line straight down the center, right through the gold frame Lady Constance once called worth more than a dozen servants combined. The pawnbroker offers her 1/3 of what she paid. She takes it. She does not tell her husband where the money went or why it was so little. She simply adds it to the pile of desperate sums keeping Delamore Park's lights on for 1 more week, and she never looks at her own reflection in that hallway again, because there is no longer a mirror there to hold it. Rupert's turn comes on a gray morning in October, riding hard for the bank in Bath to beg one final extension on his father's behalf. He takes his favorite Hunter, a horse he has ridden past every shop in Ashcombe, while laughing at the men who kept his family's books. He does not get past the edge of the village. Mr. Hollis the farrier steps out into the lane and takes the horse's bridle in one steady hand. "Afternoon, Mr. Delamore," Hollis says. "That's my shoeing bill, unpaid 11 months now. I'll be having the horse back till it's settled." "This is my horse, Hollis. Get your hands off." "It's my iron holding its feet together, sir. Court would call that a fair claim." Hollis does not raise his voice. He does not need to. 3 other tradesmen have already gathered on the lane, drawn by the sight of a Delamore, stopped in the open road, and none of them look inclined to help him through. Rupert is left standing in the mud of Ashcombe High Street, in his riding boots, with no horse and a bank appointment he will now miss entirely, while the men whose accounts he mocked for years watch him walk the 2 miles home on foot. Small wins. The viewer should count them. There are more coming, and each one is a shovel of dirt on a very deep grave. 2 weeks before the auction, on a wet Sunday evening, when the great house is quiet and Sir Humphrey has locked himself in his study with a bottle of brandy, Nora finally opens the wash-house door to more than herself. Kezia Plum is standing there in the rain, arms folded, jaw set. "I want to know what's under your bed, Nora, quick," Kezia says, before Nora can even speak. "I've watched you for 2 years, slipping out at night, locked tin box, money we've none of us seen a shilling of, and you out buying who knows what in the dark. I've stood beside you 11 years and you've told me nothing." Nora hesitates, the first hesitation the viewer has seen from her in this whole story, and then steps back from the door. "Come in, Kezia. Sit down. It's time you knew." She lifts the black notebook from its hiding place beneath a floorboard, and beside it, the locked tin box, and lays them both on the wash-house table under the lamp. 41 debts, Nora says quietly. Every wage the Delamores never paid us. Every bill they never settled with the shops in Ashcombe. Every account they laughed at and walked away from. I've been buying them, one by one, for 3 years. Every debt they owe, in one hand, mine. Kezia stares at the notebook, flips through page after page, her own name near the very top, her own 3 years of unpaid wages written in Nora's careful hand. 3 years, Kezia says slowly, and her voice shakes, not with gratitude, but with something sharper. 3 years you let me stand on those steps not knowing why my own wages had turned into a business deal. You let me think I was forgotten same as always. You could have told me. I couldn't tell anyone, Nora says. One loose word and Sir Humphrey pays off the smallest debts to break the chain before it's whole. One person talks at the wrong dinner table, The whole thing falls apart before the bank even calls the mortgage. I had to hold it alone. You didn't trust me. I didn't trust anyone. Not because of you, Kezia. Because of them. Nora's cracked hands rest flat on the notebook. 11 years of promises taught me that. I'm sorry for the cost of it, but I'm not sorry for the plan. Kezia is quiet a long moment, rain drums on the washhouse roof. Then slowly she reaches out and turns the notebook to face herself properly, reading her own name again. 41 debts, she says at last. Under statute, first claim on any sale? Rule 9, Nora says. Preferred creditors bid before any other buyer in the room. I've had a solicitor in Bristol confirm it twice over, paid for out of my own wages, because I wasn't trusting a Delamore-friendly lawyer with the question. Kezia looks at her a long moment. Then, for the first time since she walked through that door, she almost smiles. Then I'll not tell a soul either, she says. But you'll tell the others before that gavel falls. Nora quick. Every one of the 41. They've a right to know what's been bought in their name. Nora nods. The night before, I'll tell them all. It is a promise she keeps, but only just in time, and only after Kezia's anger nearly loosens her tongue at market 3 days later, snapping at a nosy neighbor asking why the washerwomen look so calm about wages still unpaid. Kezia catches herself mid-sentence, swallows the words, and walks away with her basket shaking on her arm. Close. Too close. Nora hears about it within the hour and moves her plans forward by a week. The bank's 90 days run out on a cold morning in late October. The auction is set for the following Saturday. Notices go up in 3 counties, Delamore Park, entire estate, to be sold by public auction. Grandees from as far as Devon begin making arrangements to attend. Not out of sympathy, but out of appetite. A great house going under the hammer is a feast for anyone with money and no conscience about where it comes from. Sir Humphrey spends his final week doing what he has always done, pretending nothing is wrong. He orders a new coat for the auction. He tells Lady Constance the sale is merely a formality, that friends in the county will surely see the estate stays in good hands, in the family's shadow, if not quite the family's name. He does not know that 30 of his own former tradesmen and 11 of his own former servants have quietly pooled every claim against him into one locked tin box, now resting in a solicitor's office in Bristol, ready to be presented the moment the gavel is raised. He does not know that the laundress he waved off the steps 3 years ago, calling her household his masterpiece, is about to walk into that auction room holding the only signature that matters. The night before the sale, Nora gathers all 41 creditors in the washhouse. Washerwomen, grooms, the butcher, the coal merchant, the seamstress, the farrier, every one of them summoned by word, passed hand to hand through the village that afternoon. The room is packed shoulder to shoulder, lamplight flickering over faces that have waited years for this. She lays the black notebook on the table. She lays the tin box beside it, unlocked now, the papers fanned out for every eye in the room to see their own name, their own claim, their own years of being told to wait. Tomorrow, Nora says, we don't wait anymore. Nobody laughs this time. Nobody in that room is used to water instead of silver being called rough. Every face is turned toward her, and for the first time in 11 years, Nora Quick is not standing at the bottom of the steps looking up. She is standing at the front of a room that is looking up at her. Nora does not sleep that night. She sits by the washhouse fire long after the others have gone home, running the sums one final time. 41 claims, 3 years of shillings scraped from her own wages and matched against every unpaid bill in 2 villages, a ring of keys hanging silent on the wall beside her, because there is no more washing to be done tonight, only waiting. Her cracked hands ache the way they always ache in cold weather, and she presses them flat against her knees to stop them trembling, not from fear, but from something closer to the edge of a cliff she has spent 3 years climbing toward. Saturday comes gray and cold, the kind of autumn morning that smells like wet leaves and coming frost. Carriages begin arriving at Delamore Park before 9, filling the long drive, disgorging silk and cigars and appetite. The ballroom, the same ballroom where champagne crates were carried out under 200 watching eyes, has been arranged with rows of gilt chairs, an auctioneer's table at the front, and the board chalked with Lot 1 in tall, white letters. Sir Humphrey takes his seat in the front row, gray-faced, his new coat hanging loose on shoulders that seem to have shrunk overnight. Lady Constance sits beside him, her fingers twisting a handkerchief that was once fine lace and is now, like everything else in this house, quietly fraying. Rupert stands near the wall, arms crossed, sneering at the crowd of buyers the way he once sneered at shopkeepers' ledgers. At the back of the room, in a plain gray dress, her Sunday best, stands Nora Quick. Beside her, close enough that their shoulders touch, stands Kezia Plum behind them, spread quietly through the standing crowd at the back. Because there are not enough gilt chairs for servants and tradesmen, stand 39 more faces. The Delamores have spent years learning not to see. Mr. Abel Finch raises his gavel. Ladies and gentlemen, we come now to Lot 1, Delamore Park, entire house, grounds, stables, and all appurtenant lands. Do I hear the opening? The preferred creditors bid first, Mr. Finch. Rule 9. The room turns as one. 200 heads swiveling toward the back, toward a woman most of them have handed a basket of dirty linen to, and never once looked in the eye. Rupert is on his feet before his own father can move, his voice cracking with fury and disbelief. That's the laundress. Somebody remove the laundress. Nobody moves to remove her. Because Nora Quick is already walking down the aisle between the gilt chairs, her worn shoes silent on the marble that echoes with every well-heeled boot in the county, and in her arms she carries the black leather ledger, thick as a Bible, bound with 3 years of patience turned to law. She reaches the auctioneer's table. She sets the ledger down in front of Mr. Abel Finch with a soft final thud that somehow carries to every corner of the silent room. Finch opens it with hands that are not quite steady. He reads. He turns a page. He reads again. His face, already pale, drains further, because a stickler for rules recognizes the moment his own rules have turned against the very family who assumed the rules would always protect them. Sir Humphrey, Finch says slowly, not looking up, under Section 9 of the auction statute, creditors holding claims against the estate, properly assigned, properly witnessed, take precedence in bidding over any general buyer in this room. That's absurd, Sir Humphrey says, half rising. The woman is a laundress. What claim could she possibly? 11 years of washing, sir, Nora says, and her voice, though quiet, reaches every silent corner of that ballroom the way a struck bell reaches a whole valley. Today the linen comes with the house. She opens the ledger to the first page and reads aloud, steady as wash day, unhurried as a woman who has waited 3 years to say these words in front of witnesses. 41 claims, assigned and witnessed, against the estate of Sir Humphrey Delamore. Unpaid wages of 11 servants, dating back 3 years. Unpaid accounts of the draper, the butcher, the coal merchant, the farrier, the wine merchant, the saddler, and the seamstress of Ashcombe, dating back as far as 2 years. Total claim, £4,112, 6 shillings. A gasp runs down the length of the room. Not one gasp, but a wave of them, rippling row by row, chair by chair, until it reaches the very back where 39 more creditors stand in silence, watching 3 years of their own patience become the loudest sound in the county. That's more than the reserve price, Finch says, staring at the figure. I know exactly what it is, Mr. Finch, Nora says. I've counted it every night for 3 years. Sir Humphrey's face has gone from ash gray to something closer to white paper. This is a trick, some servant's conspiracy. It's arithmetic, Sir Humphrey, Nora says, and for the first time there is steel under the calm. The same arithmetic you waved off the steps 3 years ago and called a masterpiece. Artists are paid on completion, you told us. Well, the household is complete now, sir, and it's time for completion. A woman near the front, a countess no less, dripping in pearls, actually laughs, a short, sharp bark of disbelief before pressing her gloved hand to her mouth. Lady Constance's fingers have stopped twisting the handkerchief entirely. She is staring at Nora as if seeing her for the first time in 11 years. Which, in truth, she is. "Remember your place," Lady Constance says suddenly, the old dinner-party sharpness rising up out of pure habit, though her voice wavers halfway through it. "You forget yourself entirely, standing there. I remember it perfectly, my lady," Nora says, turning to face her directly for the first time in this whole story. "You told me to remember it over a candle stain, in front of 20 guests 3 years ago. I have. I've thought of nothing else since. This is exactly where my place has led me." A woman 2 rows back whispers something behind her fan to the man beside her, and the whisper travels row by row, the way a single dropped stitch travels down the whole length of a scarf, until half the room is murmuring at once, a rising hush of names and numbers and disbelief. Rupert tries once more, his voice cracking with the effort of holding on to a world that is visibly sliding out from under his boots. "This is a scheme, a servant's plot. My father will contest it in every court in England. Your father is welcome to try, Mr. Delamore," Mr. Abel Finch says, closing the ledger with a soft, final sound, like a door shutting somewhere down a long corridor. "But I have read this document 3 times now, and I will read it a 4th if the court requires it. It will say the same thing every time." Finch clears his throat, and when he speaks again his voice has the flat, careful tone of a man reading out a verdict he cannot alter, however much the room around him wishes he could. "By statute, the preferred creditor's claim stands first. Mrs. Quick, as representative and assignee of the syndicate of creditors, you may proceed to bid the value of your claim against the reserve." He glances at his papers one final time, as though hoping the words there will have changed. They have not. "The floor is yours." "I bid the full claim," Nora says, £4,112, 6 shillings. "Against the estate entire." Silence. The kind of silence that has weight, that presses against the ears. Finch looks around the room, at the grandees who came to feast, at the earls and countesses who assumed their money would settle this morning's business, at every single one of them now realizing there is no bid in the room, however large, that can move ahead of a claim already owed by law. He raises the gavel, going once. Somewhere near the front, a man in a fine coat opens his mouth as if to bid anyway, then catches Finch's eye and closes it again, understanding finally that this is not a contest he is permitted to enter. Going twice. Sir Humphrey is on his feet now, swaying slightly, one hand gripping the back of his chair. Rupert has gone entirely silent, his sneer wiped clean off his face for the first time in this entire story. Lady Constance has not moved at all. The gavel falls. "Sold," Mr. Abel Finch says, and his voice carries to every wall of the ballroom, to the chandeliers, to the cracked space on the wall where a Venetian mirror once hung, to Mrs. Nora Quick and the creditors of Delamore Park. The room does not breathe. And then it does. All at once, a great collective exhale that turns into whispers, into gasps, into one lady near the back, actually beginning to applaud before her husband seizes her hand to stop her too late, because 3 more people have already joined in, and the sound spreads through that ballroom like fire through dry grass, until Mr. Abel Finch has to bang his gavel twice more just to be heard over it. Sir Humphrey Delamore stands in the wreck of his own front room, in the house his family has held for 4 generations, and understands, in the space of one falling gavel, that he no longer owns a single stone of it. The reckoning does not stop with the gavel. It is only the first stroke. Kezia Plum walks forward from the back of the room to stand beside Nora at the auctioneer's table, and one by one the other creditors follow. Washerwomen in their Sunday best, the butcher still in his apron, the coal merchant with soot still under his fingernails, the farrier who stopped Rupert's horse in the middle of the lane. 41 people who have spent years being told to wait at the bottom of the steps now stand at the front of the room, and nobody in that ballroom tells them to move. There is the matter of back wages, Nora says, turning to face Sir Humphrey directly, the whole room now an audience to a conversation that was once conducted in whispers on servants' stairs. £11, 4 shillings owed to me personally, 3 years unpaid, similar sums owed to every woman standing behind me. I'll have it settled today, Sir Humphrey, in coin, on the front steps where you first refused it. Sir Humphrey's mouth opens, nothing comes out. There is, in the end, nothing left to say to a woman holding his own house in her hands. It happens exactly there, on the front steps of Delamore Park, an hour later, with half the auction crowd still lingering to watch, unable to look away from a spectacle stranger than anything the sale itself produced. Nora stands at the top of the steps this time, not the bottom, and Mrs. Aldous, the housekeeper, kept on, at Nora's own insistence, because good service should never have been the thing punished in the first place, counts out coin into each waiting palm from a strong box that used to belong to Sir Humphrey's own study. Kezia Plum receives hers last, and largest, 3 years of unpaid wages counted into her worn hands 1 coin at a time, while the crowd watches in a silence that has gone from shock to something closer to reverence. 3 years, Kezia says quietly, closing her fist around the coins, and I very nearly gave the whole game away over a nosy neighbor at the fish stall. But you didn't, Nora says. No, Kezia agrees. I didn't. She looks up at Nora, and there is real warmth in it now. 3 years of doubt finally settled alongside 3 years of unpaid wages. I'm glad I trusted you last, Nora Quick. I only wish it hadn't had to be last at all. The Venetian mirror money comes next. What little remains of it, clawed back through the sale of household effects that are no longer the Delamores to keep. Lady Constance stands at the edge of the crowd, watching coins she once spent on gilt and glass now counted out as back wages on the very steps where she told a housekeeper the rough girls were used to water, not silver. She says nothing. There is, for the first time in this story, nothing left in her to say either. Rupert Delamore approaches Nora last of all, once the crowd has begun to thin, once the carriages have started rolling back down the long drive carrying gossip that will reach every drawing room in the county by nightfall. He stands awkwardly on the steps he once looked down from, the sneer gone from his face, replaced by something closer to a boy who has just realized how small he actually is. I don't suppose, he says, there's anything for me in your new arrangement. Nora studies him a long moment, cracked hands folded in front of her, the black ledger still tucked beneath one arm. There's honest work in the new accounts office, she says, keeping the wage books properly this time. Fair pay for fair hours, same as everyone else on this estate now. It isn't a fortune, Mr. Delamore. It's a wage, the kind you laughed at other men for needing. Rupert stares at her. For a moment it looks as though the old sneer might return, might rise up out of pure habit, and then it simply doesn't. There is nothing left to sneer with. It is, and both of them seem to know it, the best offer he is going to receive anywhere in this county for a very long time. I accept, he says quietly. Nora nods once, and turns back to the house that is now, in every way that matters under English law, hers and 40 of her neighbors besides. The months that follow are not glamorous, and the story does not pretend they are. Delamore Park becomes, for the first time in living memory, a working estate rather than a stage for someone else's vanity. Wages are paid weekly, in coin, in writing, no exceptions, no delays, no talk of masterpieces or completion. Kezia Plum is named keeper of the new wage book, a leather ledger far plainer than Nora's old black notebook, and she guards it like a dragon guards gold. Because she has learned exactly what happens to households that treat a wage book as optional. Nora still checks the linen herself every single week, hands still cracked from the same lye soap she has used for 14 years now. She could pay someone else to do it. She chooses not to. Some habits are not chains, some are simply who a person is. Sir Humphrey Delamore lives out his remaining years in a modest house on the edge of the village, on an allowance arranged with more generosity than he ever showed anyone himself by the very syndicate he spent 3 years refusing to pay. He is invited to Delamore Park exactly once a year for the Christmas accounting to see with his own eyes precisely how a household runs when every debt is settled on time. Lady Constance never does replace the mirror. The blank space on the hallway wall stays blank for years, and more than one visitor asks about it, and more than one servant, the same servants who once curtsied and said nothing, is only too glad to tell the story of exactly why it hangs empty. The farmers from the county fair are paid in full within the first month, the pig breeder and the ribbon maker and the cider seller all receiving their coin from Kezia's new wage book with the same careful arithmetic Nora once used alone in a candlelit wash-house. Old Bracewell, the draper, is given the first order for new household linens under the estate's new ownership, and he fills it himself by hand, refusing to let an apprentice touch a single stitch of it. His way, he says, of settling an account that was never really about money at all. The dinner party tablecloth, the very one stained by a gutteringle 3 years before, is found, still folded in a linen press, still faintly marked. Nora keeps it. She does not explain why to anyone who asks. Some people understand a scar is worth keeping exactly as it is, so a hand can rest on it later and remember precisely how far it has come. How many great houses in this county, in this whole country, still stand on the unpaid patience of small hands nobody thought to count? How many masterpieces were finished, quietly, by people who were told to wait at the bottom of the steps? A debt ignored does not disappear. It only waits, and it changes hands, one signature at a time, until it lands in front of the very people who thought it could never touch them. Here is the question we leave you with tonight. Nora Quick kept her syndicate secret for 3 years, even from the women standing beside her, even from Kezia Plum, who was owed the most and trusted last of all. Was that the discipline that made her victory possible? The only way 41 fragile claims could survive 3 years without being crushed one by one? Or was it the very same disrespect she spent those years fighting, deciding, alone, what other people deserve to know about their own money? Tell us which side you're on. This is Dukes and Duchesses, where every story is told the way it deserves to be told. Subscribe now, share this with someone today, and tell us in the comments which moment hit you the hardest. We will see you for the next story. It is already waiting.